I'm at MITOVICH at the TVLine Comic-Con suite with the cast of Amazon's Carnival Row. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Cara, talk about Vignette's journey when we first meet her, because she's going through some stuff.
She's kind of fleeing a war-torn, her war-torn homeland, trying to kind of, well, save and get out as much as she can, and help as many people as possible, and is brought to Carnival Row against her will. But as a survivor, she always keeps fighting back no matter what, no matter how much she's lost or gets taken away. She always stands up again and still has a heart, which I really respect about her character. She's extremely sensitive, but just is so filled with love and wants to kind of do the best she can and make the best life for herself she can. But Carnival Row is pretty brutal, as they can all tell you.
How would you describe Carnival Row for the people watching this in the grander scheme of things, what it represents for the...
All the oddballs of life in some ways. It's really a kind of commentary on life with the other in some way, but they're the magical, mystical creatures. Some people might call them oddballs, but really they're incredibly human and remarkable, but they're all sequestered to this one area, the Row. And
because there was a war in the past.
Because there was a war, and they're migrants and refugees fleeing from their homelands, and they've been sort of cordoned off in this area called Carnival Row.
And they're not just fleeing; they're also taken, right? It's not just.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's messy, and we try to keep it messy and developing the world, because the real world has a messiness to it, and so for an imagined world to feel real, you want it to imbue it with that same sort of messiness. And the best way to put it is through the imperialist, colonialist ambitions of the empires of man, on the far side of the world, has led to all these wars that have then sent the inhabitants of those lands back to these human cities, where they're trying to now get
coexist,
by and live.
And then they come up, they rub up against the Burgish man, and different kind of aspects of that Burgish man, come into conflict with these characters.
But the magical creatures, none of them have any kind of status, right? They're all looked down upon, and they're even working in the bordellos and stuff.
Well, I wouldn't say none of them have any kind of status, but
really?
We're getting there. Orlando, tell us about what Rycroft is in the middle of when we first meet him.
Yeah, Philo is a detective investigating the murder of a showgirl on Carnival Row, and it turns into as the season progresses, it turns into a much bigger story that intertwines. He's a man of secrets. It was fun for me to kind of dance in that sort of shadow space, shadow self, and explore that side of the slightly darker side of the character and the secretive nature of a guy who's been institutionalized since he was a child and now is living with his wounds from childhood, really, coming up through being an orphan and then institutionalized in boarding school and then military service, and finally he's in the police force. But
You're saying he's got some baggage.
He's got some baggage, but he's interestingly got, relative to that history, they quite cleverly kind of imbued him with empathy and with a sense of what right and wrong is, in a sense, but it's sort of conflicted because of his history. So it was really a fun.
And what are you revealing about the connection between your two characters?
I don't know.
We can't really tell you too much. You have to watch it. But
they're star-crossed lovers in a weird way, but not. You'll kind of see what happens, but they're two people who definitely shouldn't be together at all. But that's kind of...
I would say Vignette has recently arrived from the fairy homeland.
Yeah, she's trying to find her feet or wings, I suppose.
And it wouldn't be too much to say that Philo has been there.
Gotcha.
Well said.
Tamsin, your character is very funny. I find her very entertaining.
Oh, she really is.
Tell us a little bit about her.
Well, I really enjoyed playing Imogen Spone Rose, is her full name. I really enjoyed, actually, in the first episode, just being really mean to Cara.
That's true, yes.
Glad you enjoyed that. She was honestly one of the most terrifying characters. There was one scene where she had this candlelight. I was like, Tamsin, I just cried, and it wasn't even on me. You are terrifying. She's smiling, and she's like, come here, Vignette. Anyway, it's really amazing. It's phenomenal.
It was just delightful.
But when you're not,
Nothing me to go in.
Yeah, so much joy in being such a mean.
Play these like innocent characters, and now I'm just like, I get to be a bossy bitch. Great.
but when you're not tormenting Vignette, you're very giddy about the gentleman who's moving in across the street.
Yes, it's very exciting.
Feathers are definitely ruffled, I would say.
I put on my best perfume, which I got from a sort of questionable source. Yeah, it's a perfume designed to make a woman very attractive to a man. So I go over to the newly purchased finest house on the crossing, on Finisterre Crossing, which is the fanciest neighbourhood of the Berg, which is the city, and I go over with my perfume on and my brother in tow, reluctantly, to greet what I plan as my future husband, who's just bought the biggest house on the crossing. So at the age of, I think, 23, Imogen, she's
About to turn 20.
She's about to turn 23, and she is, that's old for a lady. She's sort of getting to be a spinster at 23, so she's having a bit of a crisis. And she's
Having a midlife crisis. Yeah. She's like, I gotta get hitched.
Standards are really high in Carnival Row. Yeah. And David, tell us a little bit about your character.
It's interesting because you said about how, Critch have a level that they can get to, which is like the lowest of
Critch are the magical creatures.
Yeah. And so with Agreus, Astraeon, which is his full name, being a faun, that's like the lowest.
Oh.
So now, as Tamsin said, that Finisterre Crossing is the poshest place, and the house that he buys is the most expensive. Now this guy buys it on an auction over a phone, cash, and moves in. And so the question that you're left with is, how does that person do that?
How does someone who's considered the lowest of low arrive at this place where he can buy the nicest house in town?
Where did he get his money?
only
What has he
humans
done?
live there as well.
Only humans live
It's
there.
a human
Lots of
neighborhood.
mysteries and secrets and fun things to discover, that is for sure.
Yeah.
I thought what was so interesting was in the pilot you actually have a political figure telling these fairy and magical creatures to go back where they came from. I mean, what a week for that to happen.
Right?
Yeah.
This kind of sounds like something's going on at the moment, right?
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's always great how when art mirrors life like that, isn't it?
And then my last question, watching the pilot, I have to wonder, did the weather in Prague cooperate with you?
Let's not talk about the weather.
I couldn't tell if it was snowing when it was supposed to snow, if it was downpouring when it was supposed to downpour.
You love weather.
It works really well for the show,
Yes,
and to experience it, it works. I guess it works for us because we don't have to act
We don't
much
have to
when your
act at all.
teeth are chattering.
Freezing.
It's really Prague in winter. It does the most beautiful things. It rains, it snows. It's like
It makes the
anything.
whole thing more heightened,
Yeah.
because it's like already the feeling on the road in Carnival anyway is so like tense, but with the weather like that and with everyone and all the characters, and
Dramatic
it just
tension.
makes it just so like you want to just bite into it, whether or not you're in
Yeah.
it or watching it.